take a breath.
She can't get away with it!
Put one finger on her again and we're gonna have a problem.
Ma'am, step back, please. Let's lower.
Why is she even standing here? Move her, now. The words sliced through the packed bus just seconds before a white passenger's foot slammed into a little black girl's stomach. Gasps erupted. Papers scattered. And for a heartbeat, no one moved. No one spoke. No one dared breathe. But then her mother stepped forward, slow, steady, unshakable. The kind of calm that warns a storm is coming. The type of presence that makes even the aggressor realize they've crossed a line they can't uncross. This is the story of a moment that changed everything. A mother's power. A stranger's cruelty. When a passenger tried to break a child, but met a mother who refused to break. Welcome, story lovers. Where are you watching from? Hit the like button and drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. On a quiet Saturday morning, the kind that felt almost too gentle for the world she lived in, Maya held her daughter Amara's hand as they stepped onto the city bus. For them, this routine had become a small ritual, an early ride to the weekend art program Amara loved, a place where her imagination could breathe freely. At only 9 years old, Amara saw the world in colors and shapes, sketching everything from birds to buildings in the small notebook she carried everywhere. Maya cherished these mornings. They were a reminder that even in a city buzzing with tension, there were still pockets of peace she and her daughter could claim. She worked long hours at the hospital, often coming home too exhausted to speak. But these bus rides felt like a promise. One quiet hour of connection before the day swallowed them whole. The bus hummed softly as they found seats near the middle. Maya noticed the usual mix of commuters, older folks heading to markets, teenagers scrolling through their phones, and workers in uniforms heading to early shifts. Nothing out of place, nothing unusual. Yet beneath the gentle rhythm of the ride, a faint unease tugged at her, something she couldn't name. Amara pressed her face to the window, whispering descriptions of the world rushing by, shaping it in her mind for her next drawing. Maya smiled, though her eyes remained alert, as many mothers of black children learn to do. There had been too many headlines lately, too many reminders that safety was not promised, not even in broad daylight, not even on an ordinary bus. She glanced around. A man in a white jacket sat 2 rows ahead, shifting occasionally, his posture stiff. Nothing about him screamed danger, but something in the way he kept glancing back, quick, sharp, assessing, made her shoulders tense. She pushed the thought away. Paranoia wasn't a luxury she allowed herself, not when she was trying to give her daughter a peaceful morning. Still, the air on the bus felt different today. Quiet but charged. In calm but fragile. A typical morning, yet the kind that life could shatter without warning. The bus rolled through its usual stops, each lurch forward blending into the hum of morning life. Maya watched the city shift through the windows, the baker unlocking his shop, joggers weaving between cars, street vendors arranging their tables. Everything appeared normal enough, but the tension in her shoulders wouldn't let her forget that something felt off. Her instincts rarely betrayed her. Amara swung her feet gently, lost in her sketchbook, as she drew the skyline in soft pencil strokes. She always copied the world quietly, as if each detail deserved its own moment of respect. Maya loved that about her gentleness, her curiosity, her innocence. But innocence didn't shield children. Not always. Not in this world. The man in the white jacket shifted again, this time more abruptly. His elbow brushed the seat beside him, and his foot tapped with an impatient rhythm that grated against the calm around them. Maya pretended not to notice, but her mind took note of every movement. He kept glancing back over his shoulder, not at her, but at Amara, as though the child's presence somehow irritated him. At the next stop, more passengers boarded, and the bus grew crowded. People shuffled, adjusted bags, searched for empty spaces. Maya pulled Amara gently closer, guiding her to stand as the seats filled. It was normal, routine. They'd stood plenty of times before, but the man in the white jacket rose too quickly, too forcefully if the crowd itself was an inconvenience. His face hardened as he moved down the aisle. Maya didn't like the way his eyes lingered on the people of color around him. Lingering a little too long, too coldly. She'd seen looks like that before. Looks that made a place feel smaller, a moment feel dangerous. Amara, oblivious, stepped forward slightly to make way for an elderly woman trying to pass. A simple, polite gesture, but her slight movement placed her directly in the man's path, just as the bus jerked over a pothole. He didn't stumble. He didn't lose balance. His reaction was deliberate. Maya saw his foot lift, sharp, angry, purposeful. Before she could pull her daughter back, his shoe connected with Amara's stomach. Not hard enough to send her flying, but sufficient to make her body fold inward in shock. Enough to steal her breath. Enough to make the bus fall into a stunned silence. Amara gasped, her sketchbook slipping from her hands and scattering papers across the floor. Maya's world narrowed to a pinpoint. The sound of her daughter's soft cry, the thud of paper, the sudden freeze of every pair of eyes on the bus. For a moment, Maya couldn't move. The sheer audacity of the act, the cruelty of striking a child, left her breathless. But then, something deep within her surfaced. Fury, protective instinct, generations of strength rising in her chest. She stepped toward her daughter, her presence suddenly towering, unshakable. The passengers held their breath, sensing the shift. The man in the white jacket looked away, as if the consequences of his actions didn't concern him, but Maya saw everything. And she would not let this moment pass quietly, because this wasn't just about a kick. It was about dignity, about history, about what her daughter deserved to learn, and what that man needed to understand. The bus seemed to shrink around them, every sound swallowed by the weight of what had just happened. Amara clutched her stomach, her small frame trembling as she tried to steady her breath. Maya knelt beside her only long enough to make sure she could stand. But when she rose, something in the air shifted, like a storm gathering its full force. She didn't shout. She didn't tremble. Instead, she moved with a calm so controlled that the passengers held still, uncertain of what would come next. Her eyes locked onto the man in the white jacket, whose smug indifference faltered as she stepped closer. The space between them tightened. He expected fear, maybe hesitation, but he found neither. Maya's presence alone seemed to tower over him, her silence louder than any scream. The bus driver turned in his seat, frozen. A young couple near the back inched forward, phones in hand but unsure whether to record. People watched with a mixture of shame, hope, and raw disbelief. Maya didn't touch him. She didn't need to. Her words, steady, cold, unshakably clear, cut through the bus like a blade. Every passenger heard the razor-edged authority in her voice, the kind of authority born from survival, from motherhood, from strength that refused to bend. The man tried to look away, tried to shrink, but her presence pinned him in place. For the first time, he seemed to realize he had not kicked a helpless child. He had provoked a mother powerful enough to make the entire bus feel smaller, and the lesson he was about to learn would leave him shaken long after the wheels stopped moving. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. The bus exhaled only when Maya stepped back, her gaze still fixed on the man who moments earlier believed he could harm a child without consequence. The passengers watched as the arrogance drained from his face, replaced by something that looked uncomfortably like recognition. Recognition of the line he had crossed, of the strength he had underestimated, of the humanity he had tried to trample. Maya returned to Amara, gathering the scattered pages of her sketchbook with deliberate care. Each page, creased and bent, felt like a tiny reminder of how fragile innocence could be. But when she handed them back to her daughter, she made sure her hands were steady, her expression soft. She wanted Amara to remember this moment not as a wound, but as a lesson in courage, dignity, in the power of standing firm. Other passengers began to move again, some offering quiet nods, others looking down with shame for having frozen. A few provided whispered apologies, not for what they did, but for what they failed to do. In their eyes, Maya saw something heavy. The realization that silence can be its own form of violence. When the bus reached the next stop, the man hurried off without looking back. But Maya knew the echo of this moment would follow him. Actions have consequences. Disrespect carries weight. And sometimes, the most significant accountability doesn't come from the law, but from being forced to confront the truth of one's own cruelty. As the doors closed behind him, Maya held Amara's hand a little tighter. The world had shown its teeth, but it has also demonstrated something else. The unbreakable resilience passed from one generation to the next. In the end, this wasn't just a story about a kick on a crowded bus. It was a story about strength, about legacy, and a reminder that when dignity is challenged, courage can rise louder than hate. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories. And remember, what would you have done in that moment?